Muscles! They help you run, jump, swim, and bother your parents. Without muscles, we wouldn't be doing any sort of physical activity, let alone hold ourselves up. So let's take a look at these muscles, but let's go deep. The man, the myth, the legend, no, not your heart, a muscle fiber, which is also known as a cell. Surprisingly, yes, this little muscle fiber boy is a cell. A skeletal muscle cell is in a cylindrical shape due to it being easier to contract and compress this way. If it was in the shape of a box or triangle or literally anything else, compressing may cause it to burst. It's like a spring, you see, you press it, it bounces back. Perfect for muscle contractions. The cells are quite soft and fragile and covered in soft tissue to aid in blood flow and nervous movement. Not the kind of nervous movement that you're used to when you take a test or when you go on stage, but the kind of nervous movement that triggers contraction. But what's all this contraction I'm talking about, huh? Muscle contraction is the most important and literally the only purpose of a muscle cell. It's made to contract and aid the organism in lifting, running, saucing, and any other physical activity it may do. Now you may remember, I said that they're quite fragile cells, which is actually quite useful. For muscle cells to grow stronger, they must first break. Once they break, tear, or experience lots of wear, they come back stronger than ever. If your muscle fibers don't experience pain or trauma, the body doesn't know it needs to get stronger. For example, you don't know if you need to study until you get a 59 on your history eval, or if you turn in the wrong essay. Somehow. However, the muscle cell may be super dope, but it can't do all this stuff by itself, so it enlists the help of many different organelles to aid in its contraction conquest. Sarcoplasm, basically the cytoplasm from muscle cells, contains everything the cell needs to do its job. Why does it have a fancy name? Because it's fancier than you.
Sarcolemma is the part around the muscle fiber that keeps everything together, like the napkin for the pretzels they sell outside my algebra class for $1.
The sarcomere is like the skull of a human. While it doesn't control everything, it controls the brain that then controls everything. On the outside of the sarcomere is the lighter eye band with the thin actin myofilaments are anchored to the outside part of the sarcomere. It's also known as the Z disc because they're shaped like Z's. And then closer to the inside of the sarcomere is the darker A band that has darker, thicker proteins with binding sites for the proteins to trigger muscle contractions. It's like a burger. The closer you get to the center, the meatier it gets.
Next we got the neuromuscular.
Next up, we got the neuromuscular junction. It's a junction with a function. The neuromuscular junction function is a passage that allows a signal from a neuron a place to travel as it goes to trigger the muscle contraction. Think of it as the pathway outside that we have between buildings. Without that pathway, you wouldn't actually be able to go through anything because there's so much chaos and construction going on outside. Without this junction with a function as a hallway or a passage for the signal to travel, the signal wouldn't reliably get there. And we need to be reliable when you have a multicellular, really complicated organism. The sarcoplasmic reticulum, also known as the SR, stores, releases, and retrieves calcium ions. These can later be used to trigger the contraction of muscles. The sarcoplasmic reticulum is like a mail service. It receives stuff and it sends out stuff. It's like your rough/smooth ER, but instead of working with proteins, it works with calcium because we already got enough proteins in this muscle. T-tubule is like a threefold pact of organelles to allow the flow of electric signals. In combination with the SR, it helps organize everything and just make sure things get where they need to go. Alright, so we covered a bunch of organelles and everyone knows these muscles are loaded with protein. But before you drink that protein shake that you just got at the dollar store, what exactly do these proteins do? Well, there are many kinds of proteins in a muscle cell because, you know, proteins make the best muscles, am I right? But half of them, or at least most of them, are mainly there for triggering the muscle contraction. One of the most important proteins in this process is called troponin. Troponin acts like a guide for other proteins, such as tropomyosin. Tropomyosin blocks actin and myosin from touching each other. If actin and myosin were to come in contact with each other, muscle contraction would occur. Troponin is activated by calcium, and once it receives some, changes the shape of tropomyosin to open the binding site to the actin. The calcium is kept in very low amounts in the muscle fiber and is only released when the contraction actually needs to occur. There's always a king somewhere in the world, or at least someone more powerful. In the muscle fiber kingdom, the fibers are the peasants. They then make up the striated muscle tissue. Large amounts of these tissue make up your muscles, such as your biceps. Fun fact, all these muscles are actually organs. All these muscles are then part of the muscular system inside of an organism. Time for some fun factoids. Let's go! 1. Muscles control every voluntary action. 2. Derived from the meaning little mouse because muscles look like a mouse moving under a rug, which actually makes more sense than you would think. 3. There are slow and fast twitch muscles. Slow ones are red, fast ones are white. They also have less oxygen due to less myoglobin, but they fatigue more rapidly. 4. Muscles make up more than half your body weight. 5. It takes 17 muscles to smile and 43 to frown. And 6. My muscles are tired. It's time to sleep. Thank you for watching.